episode 158, Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast. I'm Mike Guillaume with my co-host Nick Pateris. How you doing tonight, Nick?
Mike, I'm good. I got to just enjoy some great MLS soccer playoffs, but I'm not a TFC fan like you are. But if you want to address that later or next week or never ever, then I'm okay with that.
Now, we're going to talk about that right off the bat, since that's the freshest thing going on right now. And I got some things to get off my chest.
Okay.
But I'll tell you one thing to get in before we get into that conversation. It makes things a lot easier when your team gets knocked out of the playoffs, when you expect it to come and they come out and they play like absolute trash and the other team scores 3 goals barely offside. It's, it is what it is. We'll talk more about it here in a minute, but we've got a couple people jumping on already. We got lots of games to talk about tonight. And then we've got our live stream reactions, Seattle, LAFC right after this. So with that being said, you got anything to chat about here before we get going?
Hey, just want to give a couple quick shout outs to some new Facebook friends and followers, Georgina Stanway, Dan Welch, Todd Plummer. Who else we got? Roy Chan, Robson Rono, Antonio Rakatandandressa, Nicholas Papadopoulos, Bangudin, Amir Ciara. Thank you guys for finding us on Facebook. Also, thanks to the Assembly, a Nashville supporters group, for following us on Twitter and having a great conversation. Justin Frank, chatting in the channels. Thomas Cope, Football Index Scotland, Tactical Manager. Go check out their page at Manager Tactical on Twitter, and then link and find all their great content. They've been putting stuff out for a long time, doing really good work. Forever Revs, Scoreless Thriller Podcast, and Upper Tier Podcast, among others. Thank you guys all for joining us on Twitter, on Facebook, social media. It's been great having conversations with everyone all throughout the playoffs. But we have a lot to talk about tonight. And Mike, you want to get started right away with TFC Nashville. That way, let's just put all that behind you, and we can move on.
Exactly.
So I'll set up the result. Nashville with the late stunner, 1-0. Thank you, Daniel Rios. And Mike, you take it from there.
All right. So stunner, it was not. This was an onslaught from minute 1 to minute 120. It was all Nashville. I am disgusted in the way the TFC played tonight. I talked a lot about it in the preview episode, as well as picks and predictions. This one would not surprise me if Nashville comes in and gets the victory, because TFC is just ready to go home. Josie Altidore, that better be the last game he plays for Toronto FC. If TFC management does not buy out his contract in the offseason, we're going to have some serious problems.
He was that bad tonight?
Trash. He touched the ball maybe 4 times. He had one shot from outside the box that just barely, luckily, somehow got on goal right at the keeper, Willis. He had no movement. He did nothing all night. You can tell all season he's been off. He's dealing with all the off-field business, and he's forgetting that he's a professional soccer player and a designated player at that. So that better be the last game we have to watch Josie Altidore in a TFC shirt, because he does not deserve to be wearing the badge of Toronto FC after the performances he's had this year and the performance he had tonight and all the times he's missed with injuries, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. In this one,
did he get to start tonight and play a full 90, or what was his situation? Yep,
he started tonight. He did not play the full 90. I think he played about 80 minutes or so. I can't remember exactly when he got subbed off for Patrick Mullins. But they brought Ayo Akinola in off the bench, and had Akinola and Altidore up top. You're thinking things are going to happen, and the exact opposite happened. Nashville actually controlled the play even more because that midfield opened up. But I'll tell you, man, it was a disgusting show from TFC, and it's clear. I mean, it's very clear. They've been talking about it, and that's why I said the things I said in the past, was because you could just tell the body language, the way these guys were talking. They're not taking their masks off for the interviews, and they're like mumbling, we've got to play hard and we really have to try and, do good. These guys just want to go home. They got to go home for 6 or 7 days. The announcers tonight on Fox Sports 1 said they did get that okay to go home in this break. They went home, and by the Canadian government, with that special order that they gave them, they were only allowed to be either at their homes, at the training field, or at the airport. Any of those other 3 places, they'd be arrested if they were not if they were found in another place. It's a joke. These guys, they got a taste of being home with their families, and then they got to go back to Connecticut for God knows who long, maybe through December 12th. They don't care. They didn't care one bit, and that showed on the field. The announcer said going into extra time, you could see that the Nashville players were pumped up. They're running. They're excited. They're talking to each other. The TFC players are just standing around. They're moping. They're walking out. They're not excited. Pozuelo didn't have a good night, but I'm not mad at him. The guy's had an unbelievable season, and he just didn't have his best night tonight. But it's hard to do that when everybody else in the field around you is playing like trash. So it was exactly what I expected. I truly thought. I mean, I was gonna pick Nashville in that game. I just was like, there's no way. Like there's no way that TFC is going to go down. They are at home technically, but man, when it was 15 minutes in, Nashville had already scored one, got ruled off by offside, and all 3 goals that did get ruled out for offside, they were offside. I'll give the refs that. It was not a bad call. They were all offside, but the pressure, it was all Nashville. They had like 17 or 18 shots. The TFC's like 3 or 4. It was a domination by Nashville, and good on them, man. An expansion team going on the road and beating a good Toronto FC Eastern Conference team. Well done to them. So just number 1, Josie Altidore better never play another minute for TFC. Number 2,
I'd be okay if he never played a minute ever again.
I don't care where he goes, as long as he doesn't play for TFC or USMNT.
Yeah.
But it's just the rest of it, you can tell. I know it's an excuse, but these guys should toughen up. They are professional athletes. They're making a lot of money. Toughen up and play your hearts out. But it's clear that little bit of human element that did it in. They were not there for the game tonight. And Daniel Young with Sky Blue Citizens podcast says, well, prepare for a Canadian Championship game in Toronto. Yep, that might happen. It might not happen, because if Forge FC wins against Alianza, I believe, or Aluk Juventus, I don't even know who they're playing, but some team in CONCACAF League, there's apparently a rumor, because they will get a CONCACAF Champions League spot for next season, that game won't matter. So they won't even bother playing that game out for the Canadian Championship.
Wow.
TFC will be in, since it's kind of, at the end of the season and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see if that happens. But honestly, for TFC's sake, they need to get back to Canada, which I'm sure they're already on a plane, and they can just rest up, get the offseason, go do some work, rebuild that team. And I mean rebuild that team. Get rid of Michael Bradley. He's done. He's not even worth a max TAM contract right now. He's on a 1-year deal, so I expect he'll be gone as well. And it's time to rebuild. So
I was going to ask you, and I think you kind of already answered it. Is this the closing of Toronto's trophy window? Is this it? Is it just blow it all up, or do you think they can go out and do something in CONCACAF?
No, I think they can do something in CONCACAF, and I don't mean blow it up as far as completely start fresh. They've got Pozuelo, they have Piatti, they might be able to bring him back in a TAM deal. I think you've got a decent core. You got some young players there. If they keep Gallagher around, they've got Alrose decent, Omar Gonzalez getting a little bit older, Chris Mavinga's good. They do need to work on their back line a little bit. They have a good midfield, a strong midfield. They don't have to completely rebuild, but I'm just talking no more Josie, no more Michael Bradley. Io Akinola is your starter unless you go out and buy a DP striker.
Sure.
And look at some depth and maybe a new starting back over Omar Gonzalez. But
you're right. With the money they're saving on Bradley and Josie, when they move on for them, they could easily get 4 or 5 more players. And as long as you've got a healthy Piatti and Pozuelo, you have a decent chance to win every game. So I think you're right in there. Maybe it's not slammed shut, but I don't know. The way some of these other teams are building, it's going to be a lot harder for TFC to win a trophy.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what they do. If they keep Altidore around as that DP spot, forget it. There's no way. But if they move him and they pick up a good striker, that window's there. That team is good. They have the experience. They have a good team. They got a good head coach. I think they'll be okay moving forward. But speaking of the action that's going on right now, the second game tonight here, we've got New England and Philadelphia. So you guys will probably remember that New England went to Philly on decision day and lost 2-0. Well, guess what? Now New England is up 2-0 over Philadelphia in the 55th minute. We've already seen one big upset tonight. Maybe we see another one, but I wouldn't count out Philadelphia Union just yet. There's plenty of time left in that one. So we'll talk about that, as we continue here. But let's talk a little bit about the games that did go final over the week, over the past week since our last episode, and start right out with the play-in games with New England and Montreal, and then Nashville and Miami. Obviously, Nashville and New England have both moved on, and they beat New England beat Montreal fairly easily 2-1, and then Nashville, of course, just demolished Miami, and now they set up this run, which this is kind of just a segue. I didn't really want to talk about those games much, but just kind of a segue to what we're seeing here tonight. You have two teams who, you all say after the season of all the legs and not playing, a game every 3 days, that it's going to benefit, the team that had more rest, right? Wrong. You're seeing the teams who are fresh now that have only had 2 or 3 days off since their last game. Their legs aren't heavy. They're able to go out there and put on a show to these teams who have not played with each other for a while. So, Nick, any thoughts on that before we talk about Orlando and New York City?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And I think of the analogy in the NFL, right, where teams who clinch the playoffs always rest their starters in like week 15 and 16, and then come first playoff game, like they're flat, they're rusty. So it could be a similar situation where these guys are in rhythm, especially for expansion team like Nashville SC, who didn't have a lot of time early on in the season to really gel. So that rhythm, that kind of consistency and constant play probably really helped them. Got to give all credit to Gary Smith because his team showed up ready to play. When a team comes out flat, it's easy to put it on the coaching. When a team comes out fired up, you also got to put it on the coaching, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like those coaches, that organization, they had their guys ready to go from the moment the whistle blew for the original kickoff. Nashville came out and dominated Miami. Miami had no answer. I don't know why Diego Alonso was switching up lineups and formations in a playoff game. Maybe that's just his unfamiliarity with the playoffs, which is a difficult thing for international coaches and players to come to the United States and all of a sudden have this playoff thing. What is it? You mean the Supporter Shield doesn't mean anything? Which I do want to talk about that if we have time at the end of the episode. But Nashville is ready to go, Mike. They showed it against Miami and dominated. They showed it against TFC. They were the team that wanted to advance, and they're the team that did advance. As far as New England and Montreal, a lot of people were thinking that this is going to be an indictment on Thierry Henry, that he didn't win a playoff game. But you know what? Same thing. He's got to learn about playoffs and mindset and coaching and getting ready for another tournament. So I'll chalk it up to his inexperience. I know you're going to say that he's just not a good coach, and that probably hurt Montreal a lot, especially going up against Bruce Arena, one of the most, if not the most respected and best coach in American soccer history. I'm not going to make that argument, but plenty of other people will. But so that could have been the difference there, that slight difference with a late game winner for New England. But you know what? It leaves Miami with a lot of questions going into the offseason, because if their stars don't produce, they have no one else. And if Nashville's stars don't produce, they've got a rest of the team who can step up and get ready to play. But now let's go to Orlando and New York City, Mike. This had one of the most craziest endings to any soccer game I have ever watched in my 36 years on the planet, as a player and as a spectator and a fan. This was insane. I still don't know if I fully have wrapped my mind around it. What were your thoughts when you watched this game? And we can skip the first 120 minutes and go straight to the shootout if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Esteban Picon on. How you doing, Esteban? Thanks for jumping on. This man, the last 30 minutes of this game, should I say? Because after the 120, there was about 30 minutes of craziness and chaos that ensued.
22 minutes for the officials to figure out what was going on.
Right. Overall, it was just nuts. I mean, you had the guy jumping off the line. Did he jump off the line? Did he not jump off the line? Did he have one foot on the line? Did he have the other foot? What does the rule book say? This referee's going to say this. The other referee's saying that. The commentators are saying something else. Just a completely crazy turn of events. And you know what? At that point, when it's penalty kicks like that, it's just a complete
it's a roll of the dice.
It's a complete roll of the dice. Unless it's TFC, because if it's TFC, then you know they're going to lose. But other than that, I mean, it's just at that point, and then when Orlando loses their keeper and they have a field player in goal, you think, well, there's a little bit of
a save. He made a save.
He made a save. I mean, he pulled out. He tried to best Tim Melia, which we'll get to in a little bit. And man, Rodrigo Schlegel. I mean, he's got women on Twitter wanting him to marry them now, because because of that. I mean, it was crazy, and Orlando gets through. The bug bites New York City again.
I really thought this was New York City's year to at least make some real noise in the playoffs. I had picked them to advance to the finals out of the Eastern Conference. I thought they finally had the correct roster combination, and their coach was finally just good enough to not screw with what had worked all season for them. But, they had a couple players out, a bear. You saw Matarrita left. Maxi Morales just didn't seem to have that it factor that had always propelled him to be one of the best players for NYCFC. They didn't have that overwhelming control that an NYCFC team or someone from City Football Group typically does have. And then you have Morales step up as your first penalty taker, which he should have been. He's your best player. I think he's the captain. He should have been taking that first PK, and then he shanks it off the crossbar. That set the whole tone. First shot, he misses. I go, game over. Orlando City's got this. I didn't think they would have it after Galisi gets a second yellow card for coming off the line early, which, by the way, that's the letter of the law. And for anyone who's complaining, the referees got it right. This game was officiated. The shootout was officiated correctly. It just took them too damn long to get there. It took them almost 22 minutes to figure out Galisi gets his red. Joe Bednick can't sub in during a playoff or during a shootout, especially as the goalkeeper. And then to bring on the field player. And then they also forgot what round it was, because the referee blew the whistle after Orlando converted their final PK, forgetting that New York City still had to come up and shoot. I'm sorry, vice versa. Orlando City had to come and convert their final penalty before they could advance. So there was a lot of ridiculousness and uncertainty by the officials, but they got the calls right. However, I think the league is correct in saying we're not going to let these crews back into the playoffs. Their season's over too. They just made it look so bad and make it look so difficult that we don't want them around. And I think that's the right call by the league. You're not going to suspend them. You're not going to discipline them. You just are going to bench them for the rest of the playoffs. But it was ridiculous. My bracket's busted. Kudos to Orlando City. Their fans have waited for a long time for them to get to the playoffs. And hey, you knocked out a top Eastern Conference team, and you're moving on. Good for the Lions there.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know what it is, man, about New York City. I know they lost a bear, but Victor Castellanos was playing extremely well. They had Maxi Morales back. This New York City team just for some reason cannot get it done in the playoffs. I don't know what it is. It's at this point, it's kind of like TFC with their penalties, right? You just have a bad feeling going into it. I mean, this was when I was watching that TFC game. I'm like, we better score now, because if this goes to penalties, we're just going to lose. So, at this point, you just kind of want penalties just so that maybe by some god chance, TFC wins, and then maybe we can put this to bed. But for New York City, it's going to take more than just, a couple victories in the early rounds of the playoffs. They're going to have to make a run. And I don't know when that's going to happen, if that's going to happen. God bless them, man. That team is great in the regular season, consistently a top performer in MLS, and they just have nothing come the playoffs. So with that being said, let's move right along to our Columbus, New York Red Bulls game. Columbus hosting the Red Bulls at Matt Free Stadium. Another afternoon game there on Saturday. Columbus pulls out the victory 3-2 in this one. This Red Bulls team who plays extremely well with the high press, they can come in and take an upset in a playoff game like this, right? But Columbus, they've got their pieces back intact, and they're really, to me, they're a very, very strong team. Definitely one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, and we'll see. We'll see how they'll do against Nashville moving up here after beating New York. I thought that Toronto it was a little bit of an advantage for Toronto playing Nashville right after the Red Bulls, because although it's a different system, they're very defensively strong, right? So even though the high press with the Red Bulls, and then you've got the good, strong defense of Nashville, I figured maybe that would bode well for TFC. It did not. Maybe Columbus will be able to do better. So not much to take out of this one other than, Jossie Zardes with a nice goal, and Columbus moves on over the Red Bulls.
Yeah, it's great. Who scores the Red Bulls goal? One of the Red Bulls goals, Caden Clark. One of their young prodigy, right? I mean, this kid has pretty much done it all in his short half season with the senior team. He started with Red Bulls too. I think he was with like the Barcelona Academy out in Arizona for a little bit.
Yeah,
the Red Bulls. And then in his short stint with the senior squad, comes in, scores a couple goals in his first couple games, scores a playoff goal, has the Red Bulls fan base totally rejuvenated, has the eyeballs of the soccer world on him. No pressure. This kid's just, cold as ice. So great to see him. We got to keep an eye on him as he develops into just a quality player. And hey, man, who knows if he ends up starting to knock on some U.S. Youth National Team doors, or possibly getting some work with some expanded senior team camps. Maybe that's too far down the line. Maybe it's a pipe dream, but the quality that he's shown in the little bit of time that he's been there definitely makes you ask the question. But as far as the Red Bulls, they've got to really take a look and see, do we need to change up our system and our philosophy if it's unless they're happy with just making the playoffs every year and maybe competing for a shield on occasion. I think they got to change a few things up in their front office. I think they got to change up what their goals are. Is it just to put out a great product and sell great players overseas, or do they need to compete for an MLS Cup? Because if they want to compete for MLS Cups, they got to change their roster structure. That's for sure. Sorry, Mike. I think I went on a little bit of a Red Bulls rant there. I just didn't want to show too much love to Columbus because I've done that all season.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think Caden Clark has a bright future. I don't think it's a pipe dream for him being the U.S. national team side, the senior side. I can see it happening. That's Columbus. They look good, man. They're solid all over the field. I can't believe I'm saying that with a center back of Josh Williams, who come on. But this team looks good with Darlington Nagbe and with Lucas Elarayan, really, really strong team. So I think if they can get past Nashville here, they might have a good shot at pulling this thing off and getting into the MLS Cup. So
for sure.
With that, we'll move on to the Sunday games. First Sunday game is Sporting Kansas City and San Jose, the 1-8 matchup. And wow, what a game we had here. This one was a hell of a ball game. Started out, you're thinking, Sporting Kansas City has this in the bag, right? San Jose, unless the team who, unless the team that showed up against LAFC shows up, I think we're going to see a Sporting Kansas City victory. And then the Quakes decided to show up as the team from the team that beat LAFC, and looking good while they were doing it. So a surprising look by San Jose, and this one ends up going all the way to penalty kicks, and we'll talk about the goals here in a second. And then some guy named Tim Melia stole the show.
You may have heard of him. He's been around
maybe. So, I mean, you look at the goals, right? You got Espinoza comes on and scores a goal 4th minute in. Sporting Kansas City takes the lead. You're like, all right, here we go. It's, they're just going to keep doing their business here.
Rolling.
Yep. And then no, San Jose comes back. Carlos Fierro in the 22nd minute, Shea Salinas in the 34th to give San Jose the 2-1 lead. Right after the half, Illy Sanchez scores, and then in stoppage time at 2-2, Gianluca Busio scores, and you're thinking, there it is. That's it. It's over now. They got they got their goal in stoppage time, but then this guy, this old guy, I don't know who his. They're
going to give him a cane when he finally retires and a little scooter or something, because he's going to have no legs left. That's for sure.
Chris Wondolowski, man, all-time leading goal scorer. Boom, gets to the back post. It's just all of his goals are all the same, man. It's like it's just a Wando special, and that's exactly what this goal was.
Defense loses him, and he gets the tap in. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, you're listening to the broadcast and you hear Stu Holden go, or I forget if it was Stu Holden or another broadcaster was screaming, like, how do you not mark Chris Wondolowski in the 6-yard box? I'm like, I'll give Wando credit. Like, the guy knows how to move. He knows how to lose defenders. But, like, it's the last kick of the game. You've already had 8 minutes of stoppage time when they've only announced 4. Like, as a defender, you're like, just blow the flipping whistle. We just got to kick this ball out. I actually have had people on social media say, like, we timed it. 8 minutes was accurate considering how long Sporting Kansas City scored Busio's goal in stoppage time. Sure, maybe it's accurate, but it's definitely not consistent with how every other game is ever refereed. Usually it's just like goal, add another minute, not 2.5. Anyway, that's another discussion that pro refereeing can have about their timekeepers and their fourth officials. But yeah, it was insane to see San Jose come back. Never say die, always in it. Wando was fired up. Like, part of me was like annoyed with how crazy he got, because I have a soft spot for Kansas City. But as a neutral fan, I'm like, I love it, man. This guy needs to be like a hype man for MLS. Like, just let him go do commercials. Let him show up in random places and just start screaming about MLS and San Jose for a while. Like, you'll get fans. You'll absolutely get fans. But I'm like,
I mean, you remember that? You remember that time when he was suspended for a game or whatever, and went in with the ultras, and was jumping around, waving his shirt off. Took his shirt off, waving it around, whatever. The guy is definitely full of hype.
Chris Wondolowski. Like, I want to be in San Jose whenever they win a trophy and, like, drink champagne with Chris Wondolowski. That would be a night.
Right.
But the real star of this game is Tim Melia. Tim Melia comes up huge, stops 3 straight San Jose penalty kicks. Nothing like I've ever seen before. Now, a lot of people are saying that he jumped off the line. He was doing the same things like the New York-Orlando game and all that. If you're an MLS conspiracy theorist, like, the referees got the call that said, just let it go. No, none of that happened. Melia was starting behind the goal line. His tips of his toes were on the back end of the goal line. That way he could jump forward and push off and not have both feet off the line, because the rule is you only need one on the line. And the rule has changed where it is now you get a verbal warning first, and then the second time you do it, you get a yellow card. However, that rule went into effect this current season, but the MLS season, due to the scheduling, already started, so they're not changing rules mid-season. So that's why we haven't caught up yet to all the new FIFA rules, IFAB rules. But there's nothing more you can say. Tim Melia might be the greatest goalkeeper in MLS history, maybe. Is that too much to ask right now, Mike? Is that too much to say? Like, especially if Kansas City go on to win another trophy right now? How do you feel about that?
It's a possibility. He's won goalkeeper of the years. He's been steady for a long time. So, I mean, it depends on what's the talk. Who is the best goalkeeper in the history of MLS? Is it Kevin Hartman? Is it
Nick Rimando? A lot of people think
Nick Rimando. There's a couple names, but it could be him, especially if he gets was he with the team in 2013 when they won their first title?
He was actually with Chivas USA at that time.
Oh, okay.
Which I think really stunted a lot of his development and playing time, and probably his USMNT career. The fact that he was, backing up Rimando for a couple years in Salt Lake, went over to Chivas, rode the bench at Chivas, and then finally broke out with Kansas City in 2015 and has been with them since.
Yeah, so I mean, I would be fine with that. I mean, I could call him that if they go on and win the cup this year. I mean, he's definitely the best penalty taker or best penalty saver in the league history. I mean, that's insane. 3 out of 3 in saves just is unheard of. It just doesn't happen. So
right.
With that, I mean, I'll give it to him. So. Anything else to talk about with Kansas City? I mean, I see Kansas City, this team, they're going up against, the winner of the next game we're going to discuss, Minnesota and Colorado, where Minnesota wiped the floor with Colorado. That was ugly, man. And Minnesota against Sporting Kansas City, that's going to be a hell of a game, especially if Minnesota's playing the way they did against Colorado. Now, when we talked about this in our preview and all that kind of stuff, we didn't expect a lot of Minnesota players to be back. Yeah. And apparently with that new quarantine rule or whatever, they let it happen. And, they had Romain Metanarin, they had Robin Lodin, they had, I believe Grey Goose was in as well. They had everybody back. And it showed. And Colorado, that team that had won 3 straight, who was on a roll, that was really playing well together, just got shell-shocked. I
did pick Minnesota. I still stuck with my Loons pick there.
Yeah. So, I mean, there you go, man. The Loons, talk about it, man. You picked them. I picked Colorado.
So, let's do a quick recap here, and then we can move right along to Portland, because I know we've got a special guest waiting to come in and talk a little bit about the Portland game and the heartbreak that I'm sure you can relate to now, Mike.
Yeah.
But really, it was Minnesota's offense. Like, they finally had it clicking on all cylinders. Colorado has been an inconsistent team. They didn't play many games this year. They just didn't have that gel. But you know what? It was Minnesota's offense that came to life. It's the Loons, maybe some of their playoff experience, maybe Adrian Heath over Robin Fraser type of thing. Just getting his team prepped and ready. I'm happy for Minnesota. They have always been at the cusp of greatness, and hopefully they can make a run in the Western Conference this year. I don't think they will, but I hope for their fans' sake that they do. And that's really all we have to say about that is Minnesota's offense beat an inconsistent Colorado team.
Yep, that's exactly it. And a lot of naysayers out there with Colorado because of the fact that they didn't have as many points as everybody else, right? They had they got in through that points per game stuff, and I think they might have been.
They still had enough points to get into the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, but either way,
yeah.
Again, not playing the same amount of games, all that, whatever. Doesn't matter anymore. It's done. Minnesota's done. We got to talk about Portland and FC Dallas, man. That game was a lot of fun. We did a live stream reaction, watch along for that one. And man, that was a great game to do. Not a lot of action, but it was a lot of fun. So one of the best performances for us. And with that being said, we have a good friend of ours from the show, Rocky. He is our resident Portland Timbers go-to for all the knowledge. And we've got him here to discuss this game a little bit, since he got to watch this and take notes on it instead of hanging out with us on a live stream. So let me bring Rocky in here. Hey, Rocky, how you doing, man?
What up, guys? Hey, Mike and Nick. How you guys doing?
Rocky, great to see you, man. I see you've got the quarantine haircut going. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's definitely my quarantine haircut.
Nice. So oh, you're echoing there a little bit there, Rocky. But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts as far as Portland going out in the first round of the playoffs here? Tell us about the game from your perspective as a guy who knows everything about Portland Timbers.
Who knows everything? To take from the game overall, like I said with the conversation that we had earlier today, it was basically everything kind of adding up and finally coming to fruition. We had a lot of players missing. You really can't. We had a lot of confidence for a team that didn't have 2 designated players, and an Eric Williamson injured during this game. No matter who you say, like if you're Seattle and you say, hey, Raul Ruidiaz is gone and Morris is gone, or if you're LAFC and you say Rossi is gone and Vela is gone, that's the same thing. Like we're missing both of our DPs, and we did as much as we could with the team that we had. And we're going to take a lot of flack from losing, but I really can't take it to heart. Like we won an MLS's back cup, which is basically an US Open Cup. And even more so, it was everybody in the MLS. It wasn't just a US Open Cup. It was every single MLS team. Here you go. Here's what you got to play against. Let's do it. And everybody agreed to it, and we came out on top. And I'm not going to deny that. Like everyone had the same opportunity as we did. And then going into the regular season, we missed our two players. We missed Yaroslav Zguda and we missed Sebastian Blanco. Those are really hard players to miss. And we still did amazing. We were fighting for first in the West, even without those two players. So we have to be recognized. To lose to Dallas, like it's a hard loss, but at the same time, Dallas really is a bull. They really can be someone who pokes you with the horns and drives you into nothing, or completely gets stabbed in the back and gets killed like from the Matador. And that night we got the horns, and at the same time, all of the good bounces that we had during the regular season caught up, and we got all of our bad bounces and PK kicks. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was looking at how this game went. I mean, Portland had chance after chance after chance to make it happen, and just could not get the finish. For everybody that's watching here, let's you guys go find Rocky on Instagram. He is at Talkin' the Woods on Instagram for all things Portland Timbers. That you go on Instagram, you'll find Rocky. He's looking at doing some. Looking at doing some maybe podcasting, YouTubing in the future as well. So check him out for everything Portland Timbers. I just have to ask you though, Rocky, with all of those chances, you still have a guy like Felipe Mora up top. You still have a guy like Yimi Chara. You still have a guy like God, I can't even think about the roster right now.
You got a lot of strong players off the bench.
Yep, and and couldn't get it done. In that game to get it past Dallas, and then going into penalty kicks and whatnot. Where would you, if you're GM, what are you looking at in the offseason? I mean, I'm having these same thoughts for TFC right now, and I've only had a couple minutes to think about that. But what would you do in the offseason for the Portland Timbers after a game like that?
I think the first thing I got to think about is Giovanni Savarese doing an impeccable job with what he had. I can't take anything away from Gio, so my direction is definitely not toward coaching. If anything, my concerns are with the back line, with communication. We do have amazing players, but it does seem like we get a little bit lazy anywhere after 85 minutes. Like I said, we do have amazing players in the back line, but the communication starts to get really slim when you have almost too many players internationally. You have an American, a Parisian Congolese, Croatian, Hispanic. Like you give all these guys with so many different languages. And when you try to captain these guys, their instinct may not be their first language. So how do you communicate in the back line when you have Steve Clark trying to tell a guy from Paris, a guy from Croatia, a guy from America, a guy from Mexico, a guy from all these different places? Like, how do you command that? So as much as I like
that's a good point.
as much as I like to emphasize like how much great players that we don't have the communication. We don't have that Liam Ridgewell-esque or Zarek Valentin-esque captainship on the back line.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because that was the same criticism that we heard coming from Miami as to what was, one of their downfalls this season, is that they had so many players from diverse backgrounds. No one was literally not speaking the same language. So it's interesting to see how that spread across the league. But yeah, for a Timbers team who's really prided themselves on playing solid defense, it was something to see how they changed up the formations a little bit, and to hear you talk about wanting to go out and maybe get some new defenders next season.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've prided ourselves on defense at all.
At least in years past, I remember always, the Christmas tree formation, 4 or 5 guys in the back all the time.
4-3-2-1. Yeah, the Douglas. I called it the. I'm going to trademark this. The Douglas formation. The 4-3-2-1. No, that was a great formation, and the thing is, that was a great formation when it was Ridgewell and Valentin and Villafana on the back, but with coaching, that same formation doesn't work with the same players all the time. You see it all around the league. If you try to put the same formation with the players that you had a year ago, it doesn't work now. And you have to adjust. And the thing is, like, almost we'd probably be better with the 3-back line and played a power mid with a really strong forward. But the problem with Portland is we lost our DPs. We lost Eric Williamson. We lost Eric Nazguda. We lost Jeremy Obobisi for a long time. We don't have Sebastian Blanco, who is arguably the best MLS player this season. So it's not that I'm crying, because a lot of guys will say, "Oh, you're just crying, you guys lost." But like, no, like we're not crying. Like we're literally the Fellowship of the Ring, but with no Legolas, no Frodo, no Samwise, and no Gimli.
Well, some people
you're still trying to put the ring in the volcano. It's not going to work.
No, I hear you, man, and I definitely was feeling that loss for Blanco, because he's such a great player. He's so much fun to watch, both when he's on the ball and his passion and everything. So, Mike, let me flip it back over to you, buddy.
Yeah, that we've got to we'll see what Portland does here in the off season. Definitely some work to do. And as AK16 says, Timbers are the most conceded team in the last 25 to 30 minutes of the game. So that is definitely a problem that needs fixing. We've got Jose Mera on. He's ready to go get this tonight. And Rocky, thanks for jumping on with us to talk your Timbers stuff. We'll see you again for the live in a little bit. And if you one last check here, guys, go find Rocky at Talk and the Woods on Instagram. See it there on the screen, the graphic. That's how you spell it out, the N, the DA, and you're going to see all kinds of cool Timber stuff, memes, news, live player walk-ins when they're going to their stadium. Lots of good stuff. So, Rocky, thanks for jumping on, man. We'll talk to you in a little bit. And we've got another comment here from AK16. How about those New England Revs? Well, how about those New England Revs? They're about to knock off the number 1 team, the Supporters Shield champions, Philadelphia Union, in Philadelphia, 2-0, 90th minute. Don't know how much stoppage time yet, but this one, from what I've seen here in the last 20 to 30 minutes while I've had it up on the screen above me, it looks like it is all New England. Philly isn't even getting that much action here while being down. And again, so much goes into this with the fact that New England just played the other night. They're fresh. They're rolling. They got that victory. They're just in that game mode, and you've got a team like Philadelphia now who's been off for 16 days. They partied like they just won the Stanley Cup, the college football playoff, the NBA Finals, the Super Bowl, and the Supporters Shield all at once. And it's a letdown, man. It's a letdown. Yeah. So number 1 and the number 2 seeds in the East are going to be knocked out, barring a crazy miracle here. 5 minutes of stoppage time. So we'll finish talking about this one in our live stream reaction for for Seattle and LAFC coming up shortly. We're going to take probably about a 20 to 30-minute break here to get set up for that one. We got one last question here. Esteban Picon, in your opinion, who is the most underrated player you have seen this season? For me, it's Alex Roldan. Man, that is a good one. Alex Roldan definitely is underrated. I think that comes naturally since his brother is on the team, and he's
right.
I don't know if I'd call his brother overrated, but man, I mean, Nick, what are your thoughts? I mean, as far as an underrated player in MLS, who would you say is the most underrated player?
Man, there's so many guys you can choose from, and personally, I would pick someone off of the Kansas City roster right now. I mean, maybe Tim Melia, a guy who doesn't always get the credit he's given despite the quality he's brought. And you look at the best 11 from MLS this season, there's not one Sporting Kansas City player who made the best 11 despite them winning the Western Conference. You know, a team that's perennially looked over for the LAs, for the Portlands and Seattles, and yet Kansas City did it. So maybe I would have to say, Ed, pick somebody off of Kansas City. Pick Peter Vermees for all that matters, right? I think Kansas City is consistently overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I got to go Dax McCarty, man. That guy has been underrated for years and years and years. He has been one of the better talents in the league, and he still consistently not only does well individually, but makes his team that much better. So for me, I'm going Dax McCarty on that one. And Rocky says that was awesome. And then Sounders declined the player to have COVID. Watch the lineups.
Ooh.
Ryan Anderson just jumping on, man. We'll be going live for the Seattle LAFC game here shortly. But with that being said, everybody, we're going to wrap this one up and get ready for that live there. And we'll have to brother BKL Contreras with that question that just popped in there about NYCFC. Go ahead and ask that same question on our stream for LAFC Seattle, and we'll get to that one there. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on our regular podcast episode. Hope you enjoyed. We'll talk to you guys real soon for our live stream reaction.